Yeah, if you're comfortable with that. What I really would like to do in the future is I'd like to interview people about their products and that, because that's something I could do, and it would make me allow me to get feeling like I'm able to share information where people
Yep.
don't necessarily have it. So I think that that would be great. But what I was going to say, in light of understanding that we don't necessarily know everything and that it's very presumptuous to look at science, there's a lot of holes that have been poked in dark matter, and some of these other areas. And it seems as though, maybe that may not even be what we think it is. There some great dipole type of situations that are really, I think that are understanding what magnetism is and understand what it does. It's many different things, but I think
Yep.
it's more of a magnetic the thunderbolts kind of
Well,
electric
look, for
universe.
me, I took Einstein's equation, right?
Uh-huh.
E equals mc squared, and I
Yeah.
rearranged it to c squared equals E divided by m. So, C is light.
I
Light's
saw that.
electromagnetism. That's the interaction between the electric field and the magnetic field.
Yeah,
From
and I
that,
saw that. I
yeah,
saw that, and so I
metric
agree.
symmetry.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think
Yeah.
that that's a great point that, maybe that isn't looked upon as something that's really valid enough, because it really is an electro universe, all these currents,
Yeah.
Birkeland currents and all of these things. So I'm glad to hear that, and also see in that equation that you were able to take something and really extrapolate and bring forth some further understanding through it from what the science is showing.
Yeah, yeah, and then you can also rearrange it to m equals E divided by c squared. So that context around Newtonian physics with respect to c squared equals r squared. So then I guess the thinking around that is to understand the energy is the distance between two things.
Okay.
So that is, in a sense, a wavelength,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
So within that atomic structure, without measuring, without interacting, things come back to that point of symmetry and balance. So you can actually determine where they are, basically
It,
because all the information's there already.
sure, exactly. Yeah, if you think of the quantum, or not the quantum, the Rupert Sheldrake,
Yep. Yep.
the morphic field, that really does go a long ways to explaining spooky action at a distance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, for me, quantum entanglement's actually happening within us, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Because all we're seeing, the inverted human retina, is inward. When you go, well, actually, the smallest part of me, my electrons, my Planck lengths, originated from 13.8 billion years ago, and so did yours, right?
Yeah.
So when you see it from that perspective, all of a sudden it's like, so we're looking inside ourselves. The deeper we go, the further back in time you can perceive.
Fascinating. It really is, because like you say, it has to travel through those different layers of cells to get there, because it's actually inverse. And then you talk about the blind spot, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously that crossover where it's branching over to the brain to bring that information back. That whole super cosmetic nucleus thing is fascinating to me. To understand that this is actually like a time device. And
Yeah.
I had poor vision. You're blurry if I close my one eye.
Right.
I can't read any of my wife's screen over here. And so I really was wanting to do something about that and get some eye work done. Same with my wife, she wears glasses.
Yeah.
But understanding that you cannot utilize light in the same way after that. Do you believe in that? Is that something that you are concerned about, that, the UV, the different spectrums and all of that, you're not going to be able to get those benefits?
I would need to understand what the physical kind of processes are that they're intending to do to actually see, because fundamentally our geometry and symmetry within our body is originating out of that fundamental geometry and symmetry within that animals going in 2 by 2, right? The photons of light and that quantum tunneling of hydrogen going into that atom, creating those atoms within ourselves, coming from
Sure.
water. So the geometry in water, you have a look at that. It has a a certain angle, but when you look at that plane and that plane, there's a geometry within that looks as a cross as well.
Okay.
So I'm looking at the fundamental, I guess, geometric nature of symmetries within both biology, chemistry, and physics to see how that is coming through. That's templated first in physics. And that,
are you looking at the cymatics side of it?
well, yeah, kind of. I understand that harmonic standing wave aspect.
Yeah.
But I've tried to step away from that whole measurement process, get to the point of understanding that unity and balance.
Sure.
Understand where there's three energy layers within the body. One is that kind of cellular ATP-based energy system, which we get taught about in biology and biochemistry, right? Yeah, totally. And then you go, well, actually, radical systems are an early energy system. Evolutionary, they were first, prior to the whole Krebs cycle, glycolysis, electron transport. You look at stem cells that don't have functional mitochondria. You look at sleep at night with low oxygen tension and the mitochondria being switched off. There's a energy pathway with glyoxylase, dihydroxyacetone going through to methylglyoxyl, going through to lactate, then to pyruvate. It's going in reverse without the requirement of oxygen, without the requirement of ATP. So we have an early evolutionary energy system built within our bodies that is really where the stem cell kind of place.
So you're looking at eukaryote or prokaryote, depending on which you're,
Well, I've even avoided that, right? I haven't classed it as a form of organism at all. I'm looking at essentially where is energy originating through the interaction of light. So a light-based energy interaction. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I'm not saying you're looking at, but what I was trying to equate that to was basically the energy system, instead of running on sugar, running on fat, and then before that running on photons.
Yeah.
So when
before that running on nuclear energy, right? So the energy within the atom coming from the asymmetry within the atom, coming back to symmetry, is releasing energy as well. And when, we're going to talk about beta plus, beta minus decay processes within the mind, returning those monoatomics back to balance and symmetry, that's releasing even more energy. So the hydroxy radical is 1200 electron volts in a nanosecond. The storage of information and the recall of memory through the geometric symmetry within the atom itself and their half-lives, that's releasing, that can be millions of electron volts.
Wow. Have you heard of the doctor I went and saw in Texas? His name is Dr. Tennant, and he wrote a book called Healing is Voltage.
No, I haven't heard that one. No, yeah.
It's on the back of pioneers like Robert O. Becker, right?
Yeah.
The body electric kind of thing. But healing is voltage, kind of like you bang your thumb if you're hammering something, it gets all warm. Why does it get warm? The voltage is changing. It's isolating with the white blood cells, kind of encapsulating it, but it's the voltage that's changing. And it looks at, again, kind of that Robert O. Becker side of it, where the reptile is able to regenerate a limb through proper voltage.
Yeah.
And it's just, it just made me kind of think of that, what you were saying, but that's a really interesting way to look at it, because the energy that's released, that gives, spin or whatever it needs, the body, the energy to be able to have its functions and just think of those things being greatly diminished, and that voltage being diminished. You're not necessarily going to get the chemical reaction,
So that's the vitality coming from that atomic system within the body. The step between the two is really the radical system. So I've tapped into the radical system that allows that transformation, breaking bonds, releasing photons within.
Wow, that's fascinating. Well, I'm looking forward to getting some of your product then. So I'll be doing that. I just been really diving into nitric oxide
Nice.
there's a
Which is
company
a
that had been
radical.
producing. Yeah, there's a company that had been producing it for a long time. I got it from Tennant when I saw him out in Texas, but it's Neo 40. Have you heard of it?
No, I haven't. So
Neo.
you guys have been doing stuff over in the US for a long time, right? I guess my personal journey has been to be a scientist, PhD biochemistry, master's molecular genetics,
I saw
18
that.
years as a research scientist developing regenerative medicine products from sheep stomach for breast reconstruction surgery, hernia repair, working on Manuka honey back in 2010, and having a spiritual experience which shook me to my
I,
foundations,
I
right?
saw that. I saw that. Yeah, you got involved with the Catholic faith that
Yeah,
your wife is, and then of course you were able to draw from the science side and bring in the God side, and that's why I think you bring up the cross.
yeah,
Is
yeah,
those connections, and that's the thing. A lot of people are looking outward, and they're not necessarily looking inward. You were looking inward, and then you were using, something that people might consider dogma, but at the same time that really ties everything together when you look at it and how things must be. It's so presumptuous science, and it really makes me upset because here we've got people putting up all kinds of, satellites and 5G and everything, and they don't understand the molecular science side of it and what that does. How that creates, ROS in the system, how that creates all these problems.
yeah.
But what I was getting at with the nitric oxide and the night, that side of it is there's a new company called Berkeley. I Gosh, I forget, Berkeley Professionals. I can send you the link. They make a NOS that basically stays in the system for 6 to 8 hours instead of just mere minutes.
Wow.
And it's a great compound. I've actually been working with some of the people. One of the doctors who was involved in has the patent on that. He works with this woman that I met through LinkedIn named Beth, and Beth actually worked on the compound with him. And so she's a compound pharmacist, so she was putting the stuff together. But it is truly amazing the function that will have in the body as well. So what I would like to do is I'd like to use them both in combination, but I use humic and fulvic. Do you see any problem with kind of that, pulling some of the benefits of your product out?
So because my system is really about those proteins, royal jelly proteins, they have the antioxidants bound to them. And in that antioxidant, that pi ring structure, there's that monoatomic. So it's photoreduction of the monoatomic ion going from Fe3 to Fe2 primes it to react with hydrogen peroxide.
Okay, and that happens with the NO as well, I believe, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the whole biology is about that takes place in the inflammatory cell. So phagocytosis, switching off phagocytosis, breaking down those cells in order to stop pain, because it's the macrophage that's actually sending the pain signals.
The things that are cleaning up in there?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it actually stops it at that point. It breaks other cells down, giving them more energy to get rid of the damaged material. So it's supporting death regeneration or apoptosis within the body.
Yeah.
So it's
apoptosis.
it's about getting rid of the old and letting
Sure.
Releasing energy. So increased vitality and well-being.
Okay. Well, I'll share maybe a point with you that you might find interesting. I've looked into a lot of stem cell research of late. I went and saw Dr. Kong down in the Newport Beach, California area, and she did that work with me. I'm going to go to, of course, Medellin, Colombia, and get that done at the Bio Accelerator, they're called. The other place I called out in Florida, there's a Dr. Afridi who's working out of Israel, and he opened up a clinic in Florida. And what he does is he creates a hypoxia in the system through hyperbaric chamber and an oxygen mask. And it's not one of these ones where you got to lay in a tube and kind of, feel like you're in your
Being
early
pressurized.
place.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're passing on to the next life.
Yeah.
It's more like a big container. People just sit in it like a simulator, flight simulator type of
Wow.
situation. You all have seats all there, and bringing a person into that state will make their own stem cells. And
Yeah.
there's a
HIF1 alpha. There's
so
a HIF1 alpha.
yeah.
It's the hypoxia inducible factor, which is important in that whole wound healing regeneration response.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. People like seniors who can't heal from wounds and stuff like that. Obviously, hyperbaric's great, but what you're talking about is exceptional. We're talking necrotic flesh, and so that stuff will die away, but what's underneath it will all live. That it's not going to bring back the necrotic flesh, but it's going to stop it right in its tracks. And so that's a fascinating area of regenerative medicine that I think that more people need access to, but it's so expensive. You have to do, in their program in Florida, it's about $40,000, and you have to do 2 months of hyperbaric every day, and you work with a team of doctors as well. And I was going to do it, but to disrupt, I don't know how I'd get my, I have 1.5 pounds of strength in each one of these fingers. They're so sore. My tendons are just pulled throughout my body.
Yeah.
And I finally put on weight. I'm 185 pounds now, but I was 133 just recently until I started getting better. It's not easy for me to travel. My wife would have to come and prepare my meals. And that's just not feasible. So there has to be more solutions. And I think products like yours really allow someone to get on a path that they can do in their own home, and they can do the most they can for themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's, for me, I saw what was coming, right? From that experience, how big tech wants to own people's health. And it didn't sit well with me at all. So, personally, when you get to take responsibility for your health and well-being, through education, through knowledge, and then through the products that you use, then that empowers people to be who they want to be. So that's,
you get people off their SSRIs or whatever it is and get them onto your product. I mean, they're going to feel that bipolar shift, right? It's that bringing that balance back into symmetry that you talk so often about, and show how to do it. That's the difference. And I think that I was shocked when I read that you had gone down the pharmaceutical route. I thought, my goodness, this man has so much knowledge, and he's going down a route that is full of full of a lot of hurt and pain. And
look, I needed to walk that in order to understand it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you have to go through your journey and see what's going to bond you through that fire, right? And what's going to make it.
I was trying to teach them about photo-Fenton chemistry, and they were saying I was fixated. I was teaching them how lithium was displacing monoatomics coordinated to neurotransmitters. They don't want to hear, right? So I've just received today a confirmation from the World Mental Health Congress of having the opportunity to be a planetary speaker. So I'm going to be.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. It's like
awesome.
Finally starting to share my story openly in a forum of medical professionals that will be very confronting, right? All of a sudden, I've got a different science model and a model for the subconscious mind physics based on, this monoatomic system, inverted retina, tells where the dreams are coming from, that shows how memory is generated through quantum tunneling of hydrogen from amine. So the model provides a lot of information, and, I wasn't able to get that other than from walking that journey, right? So
yes.
And it's like, well, to validate what journey I went through, I have to, essentially provide all the information, which I've got, all my medical records and all those kind of things. And it's like, well, if that's what it takes to really shake the foundations of what we're currently doing to each other, then yeah, so be it. That's what I'm willing to do.
No, and that's fantastic. Again, congratulations. It doesn't go lightly because again, you are up there basically trying to prove something at that point, and it's a difficult position to have people be skeptical. I know that people open mind is good, but being skeptical, sometimes it's it's those layers that people have their foundation built upon that they believe to be true. And if you
Yeah.
tear one of those down, you're attacking them. And if you're attacking that, it's their ego that's now going to come into play because how dare you tell me that, don't support this charity, just buy these products that will help prevent that condition. It's like,
Yeah.
how dare you, my so-and-so passed on from that condition, and it can be very challenging. So
Yeah.
I congratulate you on not only getting the nod, but also having to go up there and do that, because that's definitely a challenge. Again, people's preconceived notions and change, that's so difficult, right? That's ingrained in them. They don't want to believe that what they've been told is not necessarily accurate because it sets them, I don't know necessarily why, but it probably sets people back in their thinking that I didn't spend all this time learning this to be told that. And the wise person would be like, awesome, feed me that information. That stuff makes sense. This is based around real scientific principles that we can all get behind and understand. And to again think that we know everything is just so short-sighted a medicine. And we're seeing that right now in a one-size-fits-all with the vax, with whatever, right?
Yeah.
So we really need to understand that there's a lot of harm going on. That's why I brought up Amerimed to you and this company that is doing the heavy metal removal. That could be used for a lot of people who are unfortunately being damaged right now.
Yeah.
And as someone who was damaged from a fluoroquinolone shot, this is when this all happened. I did a code red in the hospital and woke up in a wheelchair, and my whole neuropathy down my neck, traps, biceps, triceps, forearms. By the time it got to my chest, I remember just passing out, and I woke up in a wheelchair, and then it was down in my obliques and down in my abs. And it was just terrifying. And I had known about vaccine issues and that, and it's a fluoroquinolone based drug. So its main derivative is fluoride, right?
Right.
Which just goes right after that mitochondria function, right?
Yeah.
It just poisons and gets right through the blood-brain barrier immediately too, right?
Yeah.
So, I'm hoping that your product will help on that monoatomic level. That's, I mean, obviously, if I believe in the science, it's got to be beneficial. It's got to work.
Yeah. For me, when you're doing alchemy in your body, when you are creating, and the science behind that is based on where hydrogen is being kind of added in that geometric symmetry, then all of a sudden, if you give enough energy and power at that atomic level within the body, then it will sort itself out. It knows what it needs to do because that's how it was created to begin with, right?
The homeostasis of the whole system, right?
Yeah. So it's a little strange when I spray my product on people and they've got a headache and it's gone within seconds, right? And it's like, well, they just don't realize they're looking inside themselves. They're not actually seeing the external world at all, other than this kind of illusion that's created within.
And then that spray is going through the electroderma kind of situation. It's going through the
The particles are 100 nanometers in size. There's plenty of kind of scientific evidence that there's this one protein called apicinin, which is very hydrophobic. So it has the kind of physiochemical properties to allow it to penetrate through the skin. But because it's producing this high energy, short-lived species, which does some pretty interesting stuff, it just takes about half an hour and it's gone into the body. My mind, I guess, it's like being in silence. It's like I don't have thoughts racing through my mind at all. The kind of experience I had kind of connected the conscious and subconscious states together. So all of a sudden I had control over breath, heart rate, and blinking and all these kind of things as well, right? It was like, okay, your conscious mind all of a sudden is fused. fused back to, yeah, the subconscious. So
instead of that monkey mind that we all kind of live
gone.
with. I get
Yeah.
this horrible song stuck in my head, and I want to be doing math in my head, and I've got this damn song just going over and over, and it's on the loop,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
that sounds like a piece we all could I could definitely benefit from as well.
Yeah, that for me, I had to try to figure out what scientifically happened, right? Because I had trauma in my childhood. My mum committed suicide when I was 11, and
Yeah,
I had my spiritual experience when my daughter was 11. So I
yeah,
was,
I saw the correlation you were
yeah.
doing.
And then I look, looking at my numbers, right? I was born on 18th of the 4th, 1972. So 18 times 4 is 72. Mum was 36 when she died, which is half of 72, double of 18. My, I guess, mathematical model, 1.6 times 10 to the negative 35 of a meter for the Planck scale. Square root of that is 4 times 10 to the negative 18, right? So all these kind of numbers resonated and connected and just made sense to me.
In a numerology sort of sense as well.
Yeah. So it was, when you kind of reveal those kind of things, it gets a little bit weird, but that's, I looked at all the aspects, right? And I just said, I'm not going to leave any stones unturned. I'll have a look and see what it's see what it says, right? So yeah.
Sure. Well, at the same time, it sounds to me that you might be looking a little bit at structured water when you say hydrophilic type of stuff. Do you believe in the fourth phase? Do you like the work that has
I'll
been
share
performed
with
on body?
you. I'll share with you my video of essentially that hydroxy radical, right? When it's breaking the cell down,
Uh-huh.
it's creating those apoptotic bodies, but it's done it through this radical electron jumping from molecule to molecule to molecule. It's like needle and thread stitching it together through quantum entanglement. So those apoptotic bodies created through this hydroxy radical process is
Yeah.
actually a quantum communication system within our bodies to make sure cells are all talking to each other at that level.
That's fascinating because about 20 years ago, I had thought of aging as, a person who's basically having these free radicals going around and they're like striking everything. And once in a while, they strike an area of the cell or whatever that says, okay, I'm now mutating. Now I have to come in and be programmed to be destroyed. So I always thought of it as these balls of light that are just pinging off of everything and doing that. And it sounds like that's pretty close to what you're saying. Is that accurate in terms of,
For me,
because that
aging,
apoptosis is telling that cell, hey, it's time to die now. So it's selected it as it, but it's only selected it after it's been arborated, right?
yeah, the ability to take biology and turn it back into CO2 and water,
Mm-hmm.
releasing light in that process,
Okay.
that light being used as a form of energy within to grow the new cell.
Okay. And the information that'll embed in that one to tell it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that form of light.
yeah. So when you go, okay, look at biology not as stability, but instability, or look at life as instability from the point of view of those monoatomic systems that create that asymmetry. Each time it's doing that is releasing photons of energy
That
that's
makes sense.
timed based on the atomic half-life of that atom. So all the
Okay.
timings of our enzymes within our body is all tuned to asymmetric states within monoatomic systems.
So what you're talking about is some of those enzymes that are produced in morning times and some that are produced in the evening. So you shouldn't necessarily be having something, to eat at a certain time because of that protein, you may not be able to absorb it as much. Just in that's how that timing is put together. Is that what you're, or am I misinterpreting?
I look more at the physics of the monoatomics and understand that there's 27 different forms of calcium. Each one has a different timing. So the clock within the atom itself is determining the rate of reaction. So you can tune to different timings.
Like a crystal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So those
Okay.
enzyme systems can go from, say, working at 500 times a second to 50,000 times a second by using a different asymmetric state within that same atom, but it's a different isotope.
Fascinating, because of course calcium causes the muscles to fire,
Yep.
and the magnesium will relax that firing. So people who are having a little too much
Yeah.
twitching,
So
or
we think now of, a single atom going through a conduit within that membrane, right?
okay,
And so you end up having more of one atom on the outside and more of one atom on the inside. If you have a look at the combination of those pairs, there's actually processes in physics that allows you to convert one of those to the other.
and that's that tuning that you speak of.
Yeah. So it's
That's
not actually the traveling of the atom that's important. It's actually the interconversion of one to another that's releasing the photons of light as energy.
almost like if you were to do a crude analysis of a switching, not a switching power supply, but like a DAC, something from digital to audio,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
that just in between kind of tuning that happens to allow it to work with
Yeah.
that
So if you
on the other
think
on another end.
biology is so packed together, right? You think it has to move this thing from here to here, that to there, so slow. All the tuning and the frequencies triggered by photons of light.
Wow.
So those photons, the distance between them is basically determined by Fraunhofer lines within the atom. So the positron electron pair, the distance, corresponds to that same type of atom somewhere else, because like for
Okay.
like, right? The distance
Sure.
can only tune to the same thing. So you have all these systems operating on different frequencies depending on which positron electron pairing is actually in play. So it's just like, it's phenomenal what's going on. But
Yeah, and I want to be respectful of your time, so we can drop out. I'm definitely a customer. I'm looking forward to writing some reviews and of what I've found and whatnot on it. I think that more people need to know about something like this. I see you posting on LinkedIn, and I like what LinkedIn's become. You didn't used to be able to post stuff like this. People would say, "Is this, this is a professional platform?" So I'm so glad that you're getting your word out there. People seem to be receiving it well. You get a lot of thumbs up. I wish more people would comment. Those
I
comments
think
are,
people are a little bit taken back. Like my journey within New Zealand, right? Um, it's a small country. I've made a little bit of I guess, I've probably upset a lot of people, right? I was
well, can
working
you,
for a company, having this experience, and then sharing that openly within that environment changed the way I started doing science and made people look silly because of creating this whole new kind of conceptual framework, right?
paradigm, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And when you do that, like you're saying before, and people don't get it, they don't kind of see where I'm coming from. And it's like opening a doorway into a completely free and open field. I'm no longer saying there's matter. What do you mean? There's no matter anymore. It's like, how do you conceptually change that? So, no matter, no charge, and no time, the complexity associated by measurement and interaction, that going from all possibilities in that quantum world to, well, you've made a measurement and therefore that's what it is based on the measurement you made, going, well, I'm not going to measure, I'm actually just going to let the system return back to the point of balance and symmetry, understand what it was and is, and therefore I can use both positive and negative and look for the 0 point and just align to that 0 point and constantly do that, allowing me to get that one thing.
Wow, to reset all the time to get it
Yeah.
back just by looking where 0 point is and then what's going to fill in from there to bring it back up.
Yeah.
That's and like you say, it's really unfortunate because you are in a smaller area, and that could cause some issues with people who are just like, this type of stuff doesn't wash well with our knowledge or what we teach, and so we have ostracize someone,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
and so I feel for you in that regard, and I think that could be maybe the reason why people don't comment. But I think a lot of people are just unfortunately wrapped up or lazy, or they don't have necessarily the understanding to be able to go into and look at your product and go, okay, this isn't just snake oil.
No,
This isn't
no.
mumbo jumbo. This isn't, like my wife and I did beekeeping, and she was an artist, or she's an artist as well as her professional job, and she painted with safe paints these bee hives, and did a big thing where we gave them away, and people raise these bees now, and it's great to see that. But at the same time, people don't. I got into bees for the apitherapy for stinging,
Yeah,
and getting
yeah,
out of the pain and trying to eat the scar tissue.
yeah,
It unfortunately would not eat the scar tissue. These myofibroblasts that are growing in my hands
yeah,
are, you know what a fibroblast is, obviously,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
So it's just the body trying to repair and repair and repair, and it's constantly repairing, and it doesn't need to,
no,
and it scars up the hand so much that it doesn't slide through the sheath, the
no,
tendon,
yeah,
not easily anymore. And so I was having those stung, and my wife we raised we first were buying bees, and then we decided to raise bees. And it was a wonderful experience, so therapeutic. I mean, to
yeah,
watch them fly, and it's mesmerizing to just sit back and it brings you to this calm level of peace, just basically watching these creatures just go about their day and do their thing. But that's how, I kind of understood the magic of the enzymes of the bees and that. And
yeah. Or glucose oxidase, hydrogen peroxide, iron, the aromatics, the phenolic compounds. That's the monoatomic system.
okay.
Photoreduction, hydrogen peroxide, hydroxy radical. So their antibacterial, antimicrobial, antiviral properties are all driven through the hydroxy radical. The difference with Manuka honey, methyl glyoxal inhibits glucose oxidase, so it can't produce hydrogen peroxide. So I've
Okay.
got video footage
Because
of,
that could become pyruvate, couldn't it?
yeah, well, it does. It goes
Pyruvate.
through the glyoxylase pathway,
Uh-huh.
it's a lactate, and then to pyruvate. Yep, pyruvate. Yep.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, that's
And people
great.
see MGO as, in the body as damaging because it's highly reactive, right? But if you haven't got a functional glyoxylase pathway, which is linked to glutathione,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right?
And,
So,
and in intracellular glutathione, very hard to get the, you can't really necessarily take the even lipoics, with the the fatty
yep,
structure to it to allow it to become, the whole philic situation. But the you look at glutathione, it's such an integral part of health in the body.
yeah,
And if you can't get it into the cell, and if you can't get the liver to work on it, I believe as well, right?
mm.
Then you're going to be a person's going to be suffering from all kinds of things. So you're mentioning this in regards to how your product plays in
Yeah, that
the
methyl glyoxyl, that glyoxylase pathway. See, the science is, I think, incorrect, and it's really an energy system. It's an early energy system within the cell. If you look at stem cell differentiation, it's all driven through hydrogen peroxide. So the Fenton system, photo-Fenton, requires that hydrogen peroxide. You look at apoptosis, cell death, and the loss of integrity of the mitochondria. So no longer functioning as an ATP generator, but as superoxide dismutase is generating hydrogen peroxide. So that's the switch to turn it into essentially a light utilizing factory for generating hydroxy radicals.
wow, wow. And I know you're a mycologist as well, right? Micrologist.
Well, I've got a plant and microbial sciences and
So you understand
biochemistry.
the
Yeah,
mycorrhizal networks that occur when you look at you're looking outside. Like we live in the hills here because we moved out to get away from the 5G and all of that in Sacramento. But
yeah,
you think of these networks that are underneath that are communicating and actually sharing nutrients with
yeah,
each other.
yeah.
It is so fascinating. What do you think of Paul Stamets? Do you like his work?
I haven't come across it. Like I said, I've had my head down, right? I've been
Oh,
kind of deep
sure.
deep diving internally in order
Yeah,
to
doing important work. He can't be spending, but he does like the lion's mane and all of that stuff, and
yep.
just all into these wonderful fungi that are just tremendously amazing when you look at the properties that they can bring to the body. So Paul Stamets has a lot of talks on YouTube. Definitely a person that I would look at and see if you think there's something there. But of course, I'm not trying to take you away from your product or time. It's
No,
just
no.
I know that you would appreciate that because you can dive into that because you have the background, obviously, to
Yeah, no. I'm very interested in understanding what other people, because I've spent so much time, I guess, developing this model basically as a way of defending my actions in a way, right? So I had an experience that I shared, and then it wasn't widely accepted at all, and then the journey that I've had to go through the mental health system within New Zealand and finally get off medication and go, well, actually, no, I still believe with what I experienced. And this is now the science that backs that up. And here's the model. And this is how I got to that point by changing quark numbering, right? So starting again, right from the beginning and aligning it with kind of that Catholic story. So
Well, and we can wrap here if you like, because again, I want to be respectful of your time. But I thought about the name and I thought, oh behave, and I'm like, you get the Mike Myers thing going
yeah,
in your head, and then you're like, oh, you're talking about let these atoms behave the way that they. Forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but basically, it's like you're looking at the periodic table. Hey, we're missing some stuff here,
yeah.
and you're trying to show this again, this symmetry and this balance back and get it to behave the way that it needs to. In you thought, well, it's from bees, it's
Yep.
Manuka,
Yep.
and behave like as in
Well, New
these
Zealand has a beehive, Parliament buildings. The beehive.
I don't know, what do you mean?
No. Well, the New Zealand Parliament building is a spherical building called the beehive.
Oh, okay, very cool.
Yeah, and because obviously, I've been a government research scientist for 18 years. It was a little bit of, well, no, this is what I believe, and I'm going to walk this journey. And if you guys don't like it, that's fine. That's your choice. But this is where I'm going. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't believe you folks are using GMO grass over there. Grass grows so readily, and I'm like, I don't know why New Zealand is into this GMO stuff, because I figure that they're
Well, we
playing.
shouldn't be. We're meant to be GMO free here. So, as far as I'm aware, I haven't come across that. We had a big import of corn which had GMO on it, and we turned it back. But
Good for you. No,
I
I've
know
never.
there are parts of New Zealand, organizations that work for the government that are exploring genetically modified materials for growth and things like that, which is it's ridiculous. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad you agree. Because you have a science background, I don't, and we hear these people just saying, "Oh, it's extra proteins or whatever." You get protein, whatever, or they don't understand the chelating effect. Like the Roundup was like a boiler cleaner
Yeah.
essentially,
Yeah.
and so it makes everything devoid of any type of minerals in that. And
Yeah.
it's
Well,
like
that's
you eat
what's
this whole.
killing people, right? If you take a mineral and you put in something of high purity, the first thing it wants to do is find a binding partner. So it's actually going to stop that monoatomic based transfer of energy through that kind of photon switches based on the asymmetry, right? That's what's being stopped. And
I didn't
so
think about it
if you
that way.
stop that, you're heading to lower and lower energy forms, getting back to the cellular based energy and ATP, accumulating damage in your body because you haven't got sufficient energy to destroy damaged cells, return them
Yeah.
back to CO2 and water. So yeah, we are completely doing the wrong things because of ignorance, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's take it in a more positive direction.
Yeah, yeah,
Do you like Dr. Emoto?
yeah, I do. Indeed. Yeah,
It's kind of hard not to like a pioneer like that. And
yeah,
I love the Japanese, so resilient after everything that's happened to them, and
yeah,
some of the great minds that come out of there. But Dr. Emoto, I really can jive with that, and how water just doesn't like certain environments, and how it will, stores the memory, and then you again take it to I can't remember the gentleman's name, but the fourth phase, Pollock, is
yeah,
it?
yep.
Is it I always get them mixed up with Lionel Paulus. I think the vaccine guy, and Gerald Pollock, is it?
Gerald Pollock. Yep,
Gerald Pollock, yeah. The
yep,
fourth phase of water. I mean, looking at how it can form a bridge, and actually sustain that because of the hydrophilic nature of it. It's so loving of water, and then being able to incorporate that in program water. I'll often leave my water in the sunlight, trying to hope for some of that. But we've had some pretty nasty solar stuff going on, flares and whatnot, and so I don't, but I get out there and I get sun on me. I love it. I think
awesome.
it's just a great
Yeah,
thing.
if you
But
think about the geometry of water as a hexagram as well, right? It's that
yes,
hexagon shape contains a part within it for that monatomic system to kind of reside within as well.
and that's what you were getting at in your information on your website. You could
Yeah,
see that you were talking about that shape of it, and that kind of thought, I thought about that waveform again, going with cymatics. But yeah, the that shape of water lending itself to be able to perfectly tunnel,
yeah,
right? That quantum field, and get that energy coming back to it. And like you say, when all's realized, there's like this snap of information and energy that's released, and
yeah,
it goes to the cell, and it's like, hey, cell, you can now function at the level that you need to, because you need this many millivolts or whatever to function properly. And you could look at it in a petri dish and go, well, that's not correct, but we're in a body last time I checked,
yeah, yeah,
right?
totally. Everything is changing so quickly at the speed of light that if you put a cell in a petri dish, well, it's responding to that petri dish. It's not responding as it would in a body at all. It hasn't had that quantum entanglement happening at that level of gone through death and regeneration how many times in order to work in unity, right?
Oh,
So
sure.
so I went, okay, 2 Planck lengths make an electron, 2 electrons make a photon, 2 photons make hydrogen, 2 hydrogens make deuterium. So that
Deuterium.
standing wave, right? That
Yeah.
standing wave function is really about understanding how everything originates from that field, and how it connects back to the field is essentially through alpha particle decay. So that's where all matter is originated from, the initial alpha particle emission, and then the decay of alpha particles has resulted in the material universe, which we, I guess, scientists believe is external and physical, right? That's what we are taught, but that's the illusion itself.
Isn't it though? Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah,
sharing that. That's a very elegant way of putting it all together for anyone. And that being said, again, are you okay with me asking your permission down the road to share this if I do
yeah,
put this on a platform?
definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Because I think
happy to
there's
kind of provide this kind of information and knowledge in order to help other people kind of empower themselves, right? That's kind of the mission that I'm on.
Well, I can maybe put together some links of some podcasts that you might be interested in contacting, and seeing if they would be able to get you on there, to try and get this out there, because it's all about paying it forward. This type of
Yeah,
information needs to be shared.
yeah,
We definitely need people to understand that there's more than just, allopathic medicine out there for them, especially for idiopathic situations.
yeah, yeah,
It's like, here's a pill for your situation. I have no idea what it is. It just seems ludicrous, this kind of topical approach, and not getting to the underlying condition to stop what's happening, to be able to allow homeostasis or balance or symmetry, both those things to occur,
yeah.
as you well know. So I'm
Yeah, if the belief
happy to
system that
send
we
those to you.
currently have, that belief system is asymmetric, and
Good way of saying.
asymmetry is being generated through the act of measurement, because the system moves too quickly in order. for you to see the symmetry, you have to actually stop measuring, right? And just use logic.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a profound point that a lot of people need to resonate with, I think, is that noise in the system, if you will, that clouds before someone can actually see what's available to them or what's really there. Like you say, the logic of going back and looking at that and just seeing it for what it is, and not having the noise of allopathic kind of drowning it out with, look over here, this is what I got for you. I had my appendix out because I was doing chelation. I was using spirulina and all of these other things, and trying to get the heavy metals out of my system the wrong way. Herxheimer, more than that, and then my GI shut down, and so my appendix got rather large, and I went in for an ultrasound because I wouldn't do the contrast or any of the other X-ray stuff they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And they took it out, but then afterward, the doctor wanted me to go on proton pump inhibitors. And those things are just nasty in terms of what you see. Again, if you look at the nitric oxide kind of connection and the proton pump and all of that, I mean, you just don't want to be messing with that. You don't want to be taking a purple pill. And now they're saying this pill in America is giving people cancer. The Prilosec and all of these other things, and it's just like,
well, if you think about the science of pharmaceutical medications as physical things that they are trying to interact with an electric kind of system.
Exactly.
Or a light-based system. You've got to use light, right? And you've got to go up the energy level and go to the point where everything's trickling back downhill. So they're starting at the bottom of the hill, trying to do something.
That's work.
Yeah, they can't go uphill, right? So it's like they're stuck in a system of needing ownership, so of patenting, and therefore they have to create new things all the time, right? So they have a composition of matter. So they're saying it's matter to begin with. They have high purity. They don't have that complex dynamic nature of life that's constantly changing depending on the environment. They put in these things into people's body that target very, very specific things, but the redundancy within biology just allows it to flow like water around it. So you hit one point, and then all of a sudden everything else, so every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? So if you put antioxidants in your body, your antioxidant system goes down. If you put oxidants into your body, your oxidant system goes down. So the opposite is the balance, right? So when you put antioxidants in, the oxidants have to go up to balance it. So we think of things, I guess, currently in that pharmaceutical mindset, driven by that economic paradigm of, we have to make something new. It's got to be novel. We get composition of matter patents, and then we can have exclusivity for 20 years,
Instead of as above, so below, alchemy type of stuff. They're looking at, like you say, denaturizing something so they can patent it, putting something together with something, or taking out synergistic effects of other things and now calling it their patent. And it's like, hey, you needed those things. It's kind of like the CBDA, CBDG, CBDC, all of these synergistic entourage type of situation.
Well, that's the thing. Complexity is life, right? It's really, your body can take in pretty much anything and everything, and with that hydroxy radical system, smash it apart and make it what it wants from it. So when that biology, and this is what I guess detoxification in environments to get rid of toxic pesticides and all sorts of things, they use photo-Fenton chemistry in order to smash it down and get rid of it, to break it back down to CO2 and water. So it is the detoxification within the body as well, because of its ability to do that. Aging for me is all about loss of alignment of that geometric cross within the body, within that atomic structure. If you don't have that geometry, all of a sudden the light might be going into a different place where it's not tuned right. So,
Fascinating.
you look at plaques and tangles in the brain.
Yeah.
Misfolding of proteins. You think about egg whites being cooked from that translucent, allowing light to travel through, to opaque.
Yeah.
So the opacity needs to be aligned to the geometry of light in order for light to travel through it.
It's almost like Rife with his microscope. He's focused in, and he's obviously dialing in, and that's a different analogy. So what I would say is it's more so that light is just dialed in between those crosshairs, almost like the bomber who's looking, as they're going over, and they've got it lined up, and then as soon as you say it starts to just kind of go off, then it's not receiving that light in its full form. Therefore, obviously, the cell can't be getting the energy that it needs as much. And that cumulative effect of being off the crosshair is aging. Is how I understand you to be saying that.
Yeah, definitely. By smashing it back down to the physics and letting it start again from the geometry of quantum tunneling through that hydrogen, narrow is the way.
Wow.
The concepts within Noah's Ark, the animals going in 2 by 2, for me is all about that hydrogen quantum tunneling, and how, through him, with him, in him, that concept of our bodies are created through the light of hydrogen. That's all growing from that.
What do you think of sun gazing? Do you think there's anything in it?
Well,
I have to ask because
with Jack Kruse talking about melatonin generation through the light with the eye as well. So first thing in the morning, getting light in the eye in order to generate melatonin within the body. Yeah, definitely. We are beings of light. That's how I see things now. I don't look at, there's 3 ways. Science teaches physical external world, and they say we're carbon-based life forms, carbon being 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons, right? The 666 that's talked about in the Bible. Then you can have the perspective of that Taoist view, right? That duality of opposites, and now the photons, the yin-yang bubble. I've got photons of light coming from bubbles being released. I can show you the videos of that. And it's just like, okay, I can see that geometric symmetry with that. And then you go to the center point within that, the oneness of everything from each perspective. That is essentially, there's only electrons in that Bose-Einstein condensate of helium, 16 of them. And from that perspective and that model is essentially unity consciousness, right? So that's the oneness that's reached. Yeah.
And that's, again, that spiritual point that really draws it in to make people understand that this is the nature of the universe. This is the language of the universe. This is being in tune with understanding how things work. When we always think, we can't possibly know it, we can get some really good insight as to what's going on and how to influence our lives with this oneness, right? And that's fascinating to think. It kind of reminds me of other stories, like in the Bible, let he who without sin, cast the first arrow or whatever. You think of sin is actually the target of how they would say, it's going to find its path. That arrow is going to find its path through that. It doesn't necessarily mean sin as in sin, literal. So I like how you're taking parts of theology and basically breaking it into a component of, there's a lot of information in there, and we could take it as this, or we could interpret it as this.
Well, if you think Christ is seated at the right hand of the Father, Christ being the light, sunlight, the right-hand rule of electromagnetism. That's that geometry of the cross. Well, that's Einstein on the cross. I put E, negative E, M, negative M, 45 degrees, electric field, magnetic field. That's the photon of light coming. Yeah, so,
that's fascinating.
Yeah, and then you go, well, the geometry of the sphere, right? Concave, convex lenses within that atomic structure. And you can actually go, well, each electron is a point light source that goes through another electron to give you the position of where the next one's going to be. So
Which
I've created that geometric understanding, and actually by putting positrons back into the model, you have in that s orbital structure, you have 4 rather than 2. So all of a sudden the cross geometry is restored within that.
That's great. You know, when you think about the lost teachings of King James, I'm thinking of you know, where they would talk about Christ having these abilities, but you know, they talk about uh, putting it out in the universe, the secret kind of thing. And it's like, you know, you're putting this energy out there of what you want to happen, but they're not attaching a feeling with it. And in the lost teachings of James' version of that basically is showing that you have to feel that feeling. What do you think about feeling the feeling when you're with your products? I know you told you it told me it brings a peace within. I'm getting a little abstract in my question, but basically I'm wondering, when you you obviously have a lot of capacity for thinking all the time, and to shut that down, it'd be great to be able to do that. But when you look at incorporating the universe of what you want to happen, how important do you see that as a field of feeling when you're using your product? Does that make sense? Like just knowing that oneness that you speak of. Do you think you really have to feel all of that at the same time to kind of really impart that information? Do you think that you're benefited?
Well, how I
more
feel at the
because you
moment
understand it?
is incredibly connected to that divine teaching, right? That
Mhm.
experience that I had was, walking up to the altar, being transfixed by Christ on the cross. So being held in that position, and that's when the doorway within opened and saw a golden sphere of light, 2 other orbs on either side, and
Wow.
then that closing, and then image after image coming back into my, just like flicking through a book, having 42 years of information just downloaded, photographic images, just being handing over pain in that process, and going, that's the point of, yes, I will walk this journey. That was, the surrender.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. I know that's probably a very difficult thing to describe, and I'm sure you've been asked to describe it a few times. I
Well,
have a
it's, for me, I had to find the science of that, right? In order to rationalize. And that, why did I need to do that? Well, it was a spiritual healing. It was not what they were saying it was. So how do I convince how how this thing happened, right? And how can I share that with others in a positive way? And that's really, the product, the journey, and my story is kind of combination of that.
I'm looking forward to using working with your product in terms of a lot of pain release, not only physical. I've lived with high levels of pain for the last 10 years. I don't take any pharmaceuticals.
Nice.
So I just deal with my pain, and I use various things. I use like a neurofeedback system to try and see what levels of beta, and try and get my levels higher,
Yeah.
the higher wavelengths and that. It's a heart math thing, but at the same time, I work with crystals and that. But I'm looking forward to working with your O Behave product in terms of releasing pain from my past. I grew up
Yeah.
very, very difficult. And so I have a lot of stored imprints of energy that I just want to be done with,
Yeah, you've got to break it. You got to break them down and to release it, right? So when
yeah.
that stored information that came out of that atomic experience that I had, it was like photons of light coming out of that as a radioactive decay event, right? So I experienced essentially an atomic like explosion within my mind, which pushed me into seeing down at that nuclear level, which then, because what we're seeing with that inverted retina within that monoatomic system is
Mhm.
Balmer lines. So those wavelengths corresponding to photons of light that
we
are
see,
in the visible wavelength range.
yeah,
So I
that we
got
see.
down to seeing in one step closer, n equals 1, right down into that nucleus, which kind of, it's like pushing forward in time in order to experience those visions, which are, experiences that I now have had in my life.
Well, and that's just it. I think we see something like 2 nanometers of the visible light spectrum or whatever it
Yeah,
is. And you
yes.
laid that out in your, the measurement of things and that, but it's just, there's so much more that's going through there that we're underutilizing. And I think
Yeah.
your
Yeah.
product will be able to really allow us to utilize
Well,
that
it
more.
does. It allows you to tap deeper into the physics of what's happening within the body. Yeah. And
Yeah.
releasing that stored information as well.
Well, that is a great way, I think, to wrap up.
Yeah.
I have a call that came through. You might have heard it. That was actually a dentist who's working with me on the chemical composition of that Amerimed to try and do this detox for me. I hope that O-Behave product will be good in helping me detox a little bit. But I'm really looking forward to talking to this gentleman. And I thought this call would go till about 3 o'clock. But I want to send you some information on that if you're interested.
Yeah,
And I'll
definitely.
send you
Definitely.
the links to some of the podcast people I think that would be out there. Coast to Coast is one in America that's run by Clear Channel.
Yeah.
You may have heard of them. George Norrie, Art Bell used to run it back in the day. I think he'd be very interested in speaking with you. It'd be great to get some exposure for your product in America or other places, of course. And I think he has a wide-reaching audience. Red Ice Radio with Henrik Palmgren out of Stockholm, Sweden.
Okay.
Now his site is a little bit different because they used to really be into a lot of the stuff that is really fascinating, science and all of that. But they did go down a kind of a different path about 5 years ago, and that was more about this lack of respect that the Caucasian culture gets. So it may not be a good, I don't know if you reach out to them, if that's a venue that you want to be on, because there may be some strikes against it. Some people may have some preconceived notions about it. Another really one is Mel Fabregas, and it's Veritas Radio. So, Truth Radio. And he has 2 different sections, one that is based around, interesting things, and then ones that are based around healing and medical side. And I think you'd be great for his show on that. Again, I can send you those if you don't have those proper.
Yeah,
And
that'd
then
be
I'll think
great.
of any other ones that I could. John B. Wells left Coast to Coast. He started up Caravan to Midnight. And Caravan to Midnight would be a good one to be on, but he is political. So that may not be the best audience in terms of, it can turn people off if you have a lot of left-leaning people. But I think he keeps that pretty well wrapped up. I don't think that it's going to be something that'd be pervasive, other than someone may go online and see John B. Wells, supports beliefs of Constitution, our Constitution in the United States here. But I'll think of whatever other ones I can, and I'll reach out to them. I don't have any clout with any of them, unfortunately, so I don't know people on the inside. I'd be reaching out just like you.
Yeah.
I can, if I can find some others, because again, I think it could be highly beneficial to get that exposure, at least here, and see where that could kind of grow things. And then I'll look at some other avenues. I'll also send you the information on the nitric oxide if you want.
Yeah. Yes, please.
From Berkeley professionals. It truly is amazing because it stays in your system for hours, like 6 to 8 hours, instead of just going through in minutes. And it's not nitric oxide. It's nit. Oh my goodness. There's nitric.
Yeah.
And then what are the other ones?
Well, the enzymes are inos, enos, and onos.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's usually arginine, right? Arginine based processing of those to generate nitric oxide. But there are chemical reactions that generates NO as well through microorganisms. They'll be interesting.
And of course your foods. And of course your foods.
Yeah.
So exactly. It sounds like you're on well up to speed on that. So I can send you that, and you can see if it's something you might be interested in looking at further. Like you say, it's always nice to see what other practitioners are kind of doing. And
look, for me, I'm trying to enable others.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
So I'm quite
Yeah.
happy to put product into other people's hands. There's a guy called David Yoder, where he has a wellness center in the US, and he's evaluating my my products at the moment. So I'm having, I guess, some early adoption, people looking at it and actually seeing what they think as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, and that's what it's all about, I think, is that not only the network effect, but the paying it forward. People who are in this industry who say, you know what, I love what you're behind. I love the time and the honesty that you put forth in your product. You didn't have to put all of that, obviously, of your journey, but it really does help people understand where you were coming from, where you needed to be healed, and what you've been able to accomplish through your wonderful understanding of symmetry and balance and shape and geometry and
the funny
monotonic
thing
people.
is that the model that I've generated by changing the quark numbering system is essentially what we had previously. That's the ancient context around the Merkaba, around the flower of life geometry as well, and that hexagon type shape within our neurotransmitter structure, and how that hydroxylates through the various hydroxy radicals, and then how that breaks down further into dihydroxyacetone. So this is the way that we take light into our bodies and generate structure.
Well, it's fascinating to think of sacred geometry, and the flower of life shows up so many places, and the wheel of life or whatever, all of these shapes. And then when you take a frequency, as and put it through something, and you see this thing come to life, it's the language of the universe. That's how it communicates form, energy, information. And we look at this space that's all empty all around me, knowing that it's not empty at all. There's so many different aspects that are just our puny optical human sensors just can't pull out of it and see what's going on there. But then when you can drill down to the level that you are and see the structure that's occurring at that point, and just realize there are cultures that have shown us these sacred geometry points for so long, and how did they get that information? So like you say, you're passing on something that was probably previously known. Who knows, maybe you're pulling it out of the Akashic field.
Well, that's the thing. I've connected right back down into that experience of death and rebirth, right? So that was all the information that I brought back from that experience.
Wow.
So
from the pages that were all shown to you within that splits.
It was like photographic images of my life and things to come, right? So
talk about an epiphany. That must have been just a real, you can kind of look at the world and just have a peace with it, because you just really understand there's so much more going on with it. And you're participating at a level and you're bringing people to allow them to participate at that level. Because I'm looking forward to getting better sleep. I don't sleep well, and I need to get that decay out of there and get it, moved on. So they'll go in and clean up at night. And, I have a lot of pain, so I don't sleep well, and I have to sleep in certain positions. Otherwise my hands go to sleep immediately. So I'm thinking that, kind of tying things back together, it's just wonderful to have such a profound instant where there's so much going on, and that you really are changing your destiny, and you're changing other people's at the same time.
We're here to help each other.
How do you pronounce your first name? Is it Keryn? Keryn. Okay, just like it looks. I just wanted to be respectful and not mispronounce it. It's not a common name here.
No, I expect it. It wasn't. There's some interesting aspects to my last name as well. My great grandfather jumped ship in New Zealand, and his name was Manuka, so it's Spanish, from Manuka. So he changed his name to Johnson, and my mother was a Johnson as well, from the Shetland Islands. So I say I'm a product of Johnson and Johnson.
That's cool. Had you ever thought of changing your name back to what it was? Or would that be?
No, I'm quite, in a way, it's respectful of the model that I have, right? It's C squared. sun.
It works perfectly. Yeah, why change the symmetry of it, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
yeah. So your family's good, your daughter's good, your wife is good.
yeah, yeah. I've got 5 children.
5 children.
Yeah, yeah. My eldest daughter, she is at university. She's just started university this year.
Oh,
So
great.
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Well, I'm sure you're proud.
I am, I am. Yeah, look,
Good.
it's been a bit of an interesting journey, right? To be able to, I had to walk away for a year in
I saw
order
that.
to essentially download the information, get it into a form where I didn't need to carry it anymore.
Sure.
Um,
What a tremendous burden.
yeah, well, when everybody's saying one thing and you've got all this information that you need to share in order to kind of explain yourself, and then the more you try to explain yourself, the deeper the hole you dig for yourself. So,
Yeah.
in a way, I went, "Oh, okay, you guys want to think like that? That's fine. I'll just walk away and do what I need to do." And yeah, no, look, it was what I was shown as well, in that imagery, that I had to do that journey in order to kind of restore myself. Yeah,
Well, it's great to have that downloaded basically to understand that, things are going to change, but
yeah,
I'm good with this change.
yeah,
And I know that it's part of the whole path that I'm on. And this is what's meant to be. It's really interesting to think of like Schrodinger and think of kind of that collapsed wave form. It's like, when did you collapse your wave? What point was it that made you collapse and all of a sudden find that journey, and be, or was it just a series of collapses that were going to happen anyways, that were identified, predetermined through your course. You're making an impact on people out there.
yeah.
And I think that writes itself into the universe in a very interesting way, where you maybe get a little bit of and this is just something I'm just spitballing, but you
Mm,
may get a bit of an interesting amount of information that's given to you that just brings it back to that this is your path, this is your course,
yeah.
and you're able to affect people's lives and help them in a most profound and beneficial way. I think that's you've had a really great life to be able to do that and to find your path there. And you're comfortable and ready to go, man. And I love that. So I can't, I can't, I can't thank you enough, Kieran. I know that you didn't have to do this. I know you're a busy guy. And so,
To be honest, this is the type of interaction I prefer.
oh, good. Yeah, same
Yeah,
here. It's very superficial when you talk with the humans sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
It can be weather and
Oh,
topicals.
it's like enough with the small talk. We've done it enough in our lives, and it's now it's time for getting down to really the truth that comes from the heart, right? When you connect back into the heart. Yeah,
And people putting the skin in the game to be able to work on a level with you, or at least, some levels below you, obviously, but to put in the respectful time to go, okay, I'm not just going to spray this on my face and think it's going to do a bunch of things. I'm going to look at the science of it, and then I'm going to maybe challenge some points, and then I'm also going to have a better understanding, just so I'm not just going along with this immediately, but understanding what's behind it. Then they're being respectful to you, because it isn't just like, well, come on, I mean, explain to me why this is going to work or how this could possibly work. Then they're not really empowering themselves.
no, no,
They have to put that skin in the game, and they have to be ready, just like you were ready at that point
yeah,
to change your life. They have to be going, okay, look, I have had it with the system. I am ready to move on to something that is more of substance, something that's more substantial and has not necessarily been rooted in everything that I know, because what I know or what I've been shown isn't working
no,
right now,
no.
and it's time for me to change my path. So yeah, that's great. I'm glad that you enjoy talking to people about this stuff, because it shows a passion, obviously, and it shows an honesty and an openness, and I think that's a vulnerability that most people aren't willing to share all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And that's kind of where
Well,
we need to get to, right? That's the place where you feel most alive, is to be in that authentic kind of experience.
especially with what we've got going on around us these days, we need a lot of things to help us out. We've got a lot of environmental toxins and
Yeah,
pollutants
yeah,
that aren't going to fare well in most people and are breaking down a lot of people as well. And so to be able to speak from the heart and feel from the heart and connect to that, I think it's that whole brainwave and heart wave syncing up, and you're just in tune.
Yeah.
You're just at the right flow and frequency. And I think it's an incredible thing. I don't get the chance to speak to people like you that often. And so I feel really privileged with you sharing points with me that I know you didn't have to as well. So I know you speak from the heart, my friend. And Keryn, I hope you have a great rest of the day. We're heading into the weekend soon. How's your guys' weather going? Not to be too superficial.
Beautiful.
Are you guys,
No, beautiful. I've got, I teach.
Are you in fall?
Yeah, autumn here. Yep.
Okay.
I teach my son's soccer team, so we've got soccer tomorrow.
Soccer. Okay.
Yeah.
Football, yeah.
So
you fancy yourself a player yourself?
Oh, definitely.
You wouldn't be from New Zealand, I guess. In those areas, a lot of football fans.
Yeah, I think it's important to put back, give back, and share the time. I'm fortunate enough to be able to give my time freely. So I'm on income protection. The journey that I've had, to walk away from the science system because they couldn't understand what I was kind of getting at. I understand the challenging aspect of what I was kind of bringing forward.
That's a sacrifice that you're speaking of that most people won't know about. And so, that's another point you didn't have to share, but it shows a real human nature, because you could have went on and made a lot of money. But like you said at the beginning, it's not about the money, it's about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so again, kudos for that. And I'm sorry that it probably hasn't been, it's nice to have money. We've been able to get into something, crypto, over a year and a half here.
Yeah.
I sold my car. We've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars over the last 9 years trying to get my health fixed.
Yeah.
I haven't worked since 2016. I can't be around the EMF. This is bad as it is, and this is all landline stuff. This is all Ethernet.
Yeah.
But I know I don't know the sacrifices that you've made, but I know that it's tough when you have your income reduced, and it's not. In my situation, it's not due to my control. Yours was, and it's because you have, again, that passion of belief that you need to share this and get it out there, and hopefully things will get better. I mean, obviously,
I guess I was smart enough to know how to utilize, my income protection in a way which, by starting my business and then offsetting the losses of that against my income, no longer having to, support the government's maltreatment of me.
Yeah, no, and that's great. I'm glad you have that available to you.
Yeah.
Because you're putting it into the business. Therefore, hopefully your tax and all of those things or other things should be there for you.
So, I've started getting people who are interested in the knowledge that I've got, as well as the technology. I see it, it will take a bit of time, but the platform's there now, and
good.
The ability to move forward in a positive way is also in alignment. So
good, because as much and well as it is to help people, you can't help people if you're not able to have a living that you need to have, right?
Yeah.
And of course, for the work that you put into this, your skin in the game, which is tremendous, you hopefully are going to be compensated for that work in terms of what's fair, and you should be.
Yeah.
Because your time is absolutely valuable, and you obviously know this, and the work you've done is invaluable, as you know, and so why shouldn't you be compensated? And that's something that I have had difficulty when I've worked with practitioners in the past who see it as just trying to help. They definitely need to sustain through that, or they can't help.
No,
obviously.
yeah, that's
So
so true.
I'm glad that you're able to do that. I'm glad you're seeing some progress.
Yeah,
And again, that's what my goal is here too, is to share your contact info with your permission,
yeah,
to be able
definitely.
to let people know about the great work. And I look forward to letting them know my personal experience too, because it's going to be wonderful to try it and see the changes that happen. And I really feel like I'm in tune with things. That's one of the reasons why EMF affects me so
Yeah,
bloody much.
yeah.
I am Reiki 1 and 2 certified, so I feel energy in my hands all the time. I just haven't been able to heal myself. I can work on my wife's headaches, no problem. I
Yep,
put my
yep.
hands, lay my hands on her, and she's good. But for me, man, it's not so good. But I feel like I'll be able to pick up the vibrations and energy and the love that goes into that.
Mm.
Do you keep your bees, or do you?
No, look, I've got friends that have got bees and I can get honey from them. But for me
Okay.
at the moment, um, I utilize shop bought Manuka honey. The reason why I'm doing that is it's gone through all the certifications and everything like that.
Okay.
And I'm able to look at a variety of different products, kind of evaluating what they're like. So the product, because it's responding to light,
Mhm.
it's taking that energy and it's breaking itself down, making those quantum entangled fluids. So depending on the energy and the environment around the bottle, depending on the color of the bottle, it's constantly aligning itself and realigning itself in order to be tuned in to the energy within that environment. So,
S-
to be able to go, well, I can't measure it using light because it's taking that as a form of energy to create the geometry within it. So there's a company down in Christchurch, New Zealand called Izon that has a nanopore technology, and they can measure individual particles going through and therefore quantify how many particles there are per mil. But the complexity of the system, because it's so responsive, that monoatomic system, so responsive to light with the positron and electron, I've got video footage of those waves being generated and then the diffraction patterns being created within that. I'll send you through some video information and you can kind of have a look at
I would love to see that. Yeah,
yeah,
I'd love to see that. And if it's okay, if I could share that as well,
yeah,
if you're
definitely,
okay with that.
definitely.
Okay. Well, yeah, who knew that tea tree would be a Melaleuca, right? Isn't that where the Manuka comes from? The bees working on
Yeah, on
Melaleuca
the
tree?
Manuka plant. So, I've got also a paper that I've written showing where the methyl glyoxal originates from, actually from the pollen itself. So it's the
Okay.
collection of the pollen and the germination process in the pollen that's generating those low molecular weight species through this light-based Fenton system.
And that's why you've chose Manuka honey as opposed to like any other type of
Yeah,
clover or
yeah.
anything like that.
And it's that inhibition of glucose oxidase, which is important to allow capture of the proteins. Because without that
Which we
system being broken, you're getting too many hydroxy radicals as soon as you're adding water to it.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah,
so this kind of prevents that
yeah,
saturation of that point. And
yeah,
again, because it's all about the balance, you don't want a saturation in one area, it's going to throw out the other,
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah. So by capturing them and then using them topically,
Okay.
it's the skin being derived from the same cells as the brain. So in a
Uh-huh.
sense, it is, if you listen to Bruce Lipton at all, the membrane is the brain. So
Yeah.
the skin essentially is an extension of the brain. So
Yeah.
hence the ability to allow brain fog to be lifted, to accelerate that
Yeah,
deeper.
the wisdom in your cells, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, Bruce Lipton's pretty amazing. He sometimes narrates his own books, which I don't know if he should, but
yeah,
because he's great, and I've watched some countless videos on him. But the wisdom in your cells was fascinating to really hear. And again, he comes up against his peers,
yeah,
because he's in the science side of it, and he's trying to teach us, and they're like, that's
Yeah,
That's
the whole
taboo there. That's taboo, Bruce.
yeah, totally. When you're saying that the environment's determining which genes are actually being expressed, and therefore it's epigenetic control.
It is above the gene
Yep.
control.
Yeah.
It all comes down to that. So
Yeah.
that plays into your work as well as
Yeah.
obviously the tie-in through that.
Yeah.
Well, that's even more science behind it, more fundamentals, right?
Indeed.
Wonderful. Well, Keryn, thanks so much for your time today. Did you hit record on it?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure how this will work when I end it, if it'll just be there or what happens. Oh yeah, I see up in the corner, it shows recording. So
Yeah.
great. Well,
Brilliant.
wonderful. I
I'll
look
send
forward
it
to
through
getting.
to you.
Yeah, sounds good. And then I'll get back to you with the other resources through LinkedIn. Is that best to send them through there?
Yeah, that's
as
brilliant.
a link?
Yep.
That's okay for you?
Yep.
And then if I have any updates of anyone who would love to get a hold of your product and that, I'll just I'll obviously give them access to what we've discussed, but at the same time, I'm going to direct them to your website. They got to put their skin in the game, but at the same time, I'll have them contact you. And if, I guess setting up orders is just straightforward, just a shopping cart, the whole bit. Is that how your site works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Is it in Aussie dollars?
It's in New Zealand dollars, probably. But I can, yeah, people have been ordering via the US. So I think I've got multiple currencies on that. So it'll just be in US dollars, probably.
Okay. And what about shipping warmth? Does temperature affect your product?
So the proteins are stable up to about 65 degrees.
Okay. Wow. That gets hot here.
That's
hot.
Celsius, not Fahrenheit.
Okay. And then
sorry,
we shouldn't have any days like we shouldn't have any days. Yeah, I should realize. So at the same time, what about radiation? It's going to come through. It's going to be radiated, and that from the government.
Yeah.
Do you see any concern with that light?
I would just consider if the X-rays or photons are at a particular wavelength, they might cause a little bit of geometric change, but it's going to return back to the point of balance and symmetry. So
okay, good to know. Yeah, I don't mean to ask you these points, but I just think that it's important to understand from my standpoint when I order, but also for anyone else who would be involved in it. So
yeah.
All right, sir. Well, you go have a wonderful day. I hope you enjoy that soccer tomorrow or on the weekend. Yeah. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or you want to ask about any of the stuff that I provide down the road. Okay.
Fantastic.
That's all right. Awesome. I look forward to trying your product, and I'll get back to you on that too. All right.
Yeah, that would be great. I love hearing the reviews and testimonials. Like I went to NZ Spirit Festival, which is it's a festival which had probably 200 or 300 vendors, lots of people providing different forms of energy healing and things like that as well. So there's quite I guess for New Zealand, a reasonably sized conscious community, alcohol free.
What's the name of it again?
NZ Spirit Festival.
Okay, that's why I couldn't hear it. Yeah, that's a weird one. NZ, INZ.
No, N as in New Zealand, NZ.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Okay. No, it makes sense. Yeah, it's in New Zealand.
Yep.
That's it. NZ.
Yep.
Okay, I'll look that up. Maybe they posted something on it. Sounds like something of interest to me as well. So
yeah, there's a few different kind of things happening down under or down in New Zealand. So
yeah. And that's coming up. You're going to it, or
I just went. So Bruce Lipton was actually there. I listened to him speak. So
no way! What a pleasure! Wow.
He spent 6 months of his life in New Zealand.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, he has a place up in Kerikeri.
It's tough. We want to move out of the States, and that's something we're going to do definitely within the next 2 to 3 years. But at the same time, New Zealand's not possible. They want a lot of money if you want to come over there. You got to kind of start a business, but that would be a definite beautiful place for anyone to live. And I'm sure you feel fortunate, and I can understand why Bruce might want to come out there 6 months out of the
indeed.
All right. Well, Keryn, again, thanks again for all your time today. I really appreciate it. Great to meet a genuine soul like yourself, and we'll communicate down the road. Okay.
Brilliant.
All right, sir. Bye-bye.
See ya.